Hello, friends and neighbors. Dr. Ken Berry here. I'm going to be hanging out with you for the next hour or so. I've got some crazy news articles to share with you today that I think you're going to find interesting, aka funny, ironic, worrisome. Uh, there's a new study out, and of course, every mainstream news outlet. Let's call them corporate media news outlets whose advertising is directly paid for by big pharma and big food. They all have got an article about it. Some of them, their headline is very inflammatory. Some is somewhat factual. Then I'm gonna show you these articles, and then I'm gonna actually show you the research and what it actually says. And then after that, I'm gonna answer as many of your questions as I can in the next hour. So if you know a friend who's always wanting to ask me a question, but they always forget, you can share this on your favorite social media. Maybe they'll see it, or you can send it in a text message or an email, WhatsApp message. And let's get as many people watching this as possible, because there's so much fake news. There's so much nutrition misinformation out there that it's just propaganda is all it is. And it's getting to the point where there's more and more of you guys every day are starting to see through this. But there are still millions and millions of your friends and fellow humans who, when they see a news article like this, they're like, oh, that's it. There you go. And they have no idea that it's effectively bought and paid for by certain corporations that guide how research is designed and how research is performed. All right. So hit the thumbs up, hit the heart, share this video, and I'm going to get into this. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. You've probably seen these news articles. I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to walk through these articles. So here is an article from CNN. Keep your red meat to these limits to protect your brain health, experts say. So immediately it implies, oh, if you eat too much red meat, it will harm your brain. That's what this headline screams, right? And then, of course, there's the mandatory picture in the produce section there. Reducing your red meat consumption can have many positive impacts. That's stated as a fact, but it says could have many. That could equals could not. Keep that in mind. May equals may not. Might equals might not. Anytime you see that word in a title, you can immediately know, oh, the opposite also may be true. Those who ate a quarter of a serving of more of processed red meat, such as bacon, bologna, and hot dogs, had a 13% higher chance of developing dementia than those who had less than 1/10 of a serving per day, according to study published Wednesday in the journal Neurology. Now, they counted a serving size of red meat as 3 ounces, which could be 2 slices of bacon, 1.5 slices of bologna, or 1 hot dog. They found that for each extra serving of processed red meat, it was associated with a 1.6-year acceleration in brain aging. Ask me how they calculated that. So that's CNN. Now let's go to U.S. News and World Report. Red meat, dementia, the surprising link. Steak, hamburgers, beef ribs, and hot dogs are bad for the aging brain. Obviously, they don't have a health or nutrition editor at U.S. News and World Report. If they did, they would have changed that sentence. Folks who eat a lot of red meat and processed meat are more likely to develop dementia, researchers reported. So that's a lie. That's not what the researchers said. So this was a observational study, of course. Almost all nutrition research is observational. It can only show a possible association. It can never show causation. So when you use a word like "are," are more likely. No, this is dishonest. I doubt this reporter meant to be dishonest. They're probably just ignorant of how to report on research like this because they don't have a science editor or a nutrition editor. Now, here's the press release from Mass General Brigham. Now, this is from a hospital corporation. They should know better. Look very carefully at the headline. Red meat consumption increases risk of dementia and cognitive decline. There's no may, there's no might, there's no may increase the risk or may increase the chances. It just says it increases the risk. This publication should absolutely know better than this. This is dishonest. Now, when you look at CNN, they're so near bankruptcy, they're just trying to throw out clickbaity headlines as quickly as they can. I don't blame them for having this article or for this headline. But this one, Mass General Brigham, red meat consumption increases risk of dementia. This is a lie. I don't know who they got to write this article, but this is absolutely not true. Red meat consumption is an established risk factor for chronic conditions, including cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. Is an established risk factor. This is a complete lie. There is no research that establishes red meat consumption as a risk factor for type 2 diabetes. That definitely is not true. Cardiovascular disease, no. Red meat consumption might raise your LDL cholesterol, but there's no definitive research showing an established risk. Unbelievable that Mass General Brigham would publish something like this. Now, here's the actual study. It was published in Neurology. The title is Long-Term Intake of Red Meat in Relation to Dementia Risk and Cognitive Function in U.S. Adults. Now, what they did was, this is a prospective cohort study. This is epidemiology. There's actually no new research done here. They didn't assemble a big group of people and then study them. They pulled this data from the Nurses' Health Study and from the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study. These studies were started back in the 80s. These studies, they actually cut off the research that they were using in 2023. Okay. So this is observational research. This cannot, by definition, prove anything. And the research authors, to their credit, they don't attempt to say that. So let me show you the results. So when you're talking about something like, oh, we're going to study this thing that might be a hazard, it might be a risk, it might harm you, then you talk about the results in hazard ratios. Now, many researchers will say that a hazard ratio of less than 2.0 is just background noise. It's not even worth getting your panties in a fluster over. The hazard ratio that they found was 1.13 for processed red meat. This is less than background noise. Okay, again, 1.13 is the hazard ratio. Now, let me tell you how you can know this. Remember back when we did all the research about tobacco smoke and lung cancer? That was observational research. But when they did those studies, they found a hazard ratio of anywhere between 10 and 30. So hazard ratio for red meat and dementia, 1.13, barely above 1. If it was 1.0, that would literally mean there was no finding whatsoever. But they found a hazard ratio of 1.13. But when they did the studies with cigarette smoking and lung cancer, they found hazard ratios anywhere from 10 up to 30. That's how we know that cigarette smoking absolutely does increase your risk of developing lung cancer. Still doesn't guarantee that you'll get lung cancer. We all have that uncle who smoked till he was 9, started smoking when he was 12 and smoked till he was 92. Just smoking doesn't guarantee that you're going to develop lung cancer, but it greatly increases your risk. A hazard ratio of 10, 20, 30, even over 30 in some of the studies. Huge hazard ratio versus a hazard ratio of 1.13 when it comes to red meat, increasing your risk of developing dementia. Now, you may be saying, wait, what? So every corporate media outlets had a big article, red meat causes dementia. The hazard ratio was 1.13. If it had been 1.0, then that would literally mean it had zero effect. Now, the problem with this is something that we call confounders. So when you talk about cigarette smoke and lung cancer, you can see that's a very direct, you inhale the smoke into your lungs, direct. And then the hazard ratio was 20 or 30. Also, when it comes to, a confounder is something that might make what you found in your observational study, it might make it look real, but it's confounded. It's not real. So most people who are trying to eat a healthy diet and believe the mainstream narrative, what do they eat very little of? They eat no processed meat. And they eat very little red meat because they believe the hype, right? So by definition, when you do a study like this, people who don't eat much red meat, the findings are confounded by something called healthy user bias. And you can try all day long to correct for that, but you can't correct for that. The people who were eating the least amount of processed meat and the least amount of red meat in these studies, they were also exercising every day. They absolutely did not smoke. They did not drink to excess. They were trying their best to live a healthy life. Now, they believe that a plant-based diet is the healthiest diet, so they were doing that. Plant-based meaning at least 70% of their food intake comes from plants. So these people were doing all these other things to stay healthy. And we know there's good research that if you exercise regularly, that's going to decrease your risk of dementia. This is well known. If you just eat real whole foods in your diet only, no processed food, that's going to decrease your risk of dementia. I don't think any nutrition expert would argue with that. But they're trying to establish a direct link between processed meat, like bacon, even though bacon is literally just sliced up meat. You take a solid hunk of pork belly and slice it up. I'm not sure where the processing happens there. And then hot dogs and bologna are just ground up meat with salt and spices added. That's what bologna is. That's what hot dogs are. There's nothing magical that they do. They don't use any hexane on hot dogs and bologna like they use on canola oil or soybean oil. Bologna and hot dogs are made in a food factory. They're not made in a chemical factory like vegetable seed oils are. So there's not a lot of processing. It's just ground up meat, salt, and spices. But yet they are on a mission to convince you that red meat is bad for you. And I promise you, next week, there will be a new article based on a new study that shows that red meat causes hair loss, or red meat causes your penis to shrink, or red meat causes your boobs to deflate. There'll be something. Every week there's going to be a new article. And it's getting to the point where it's just like, I mean, most of you guys watching this, you're already like rolling your eyes like, when are they going to stop? This is dumb. But you got to remember, you and I are preaching to the choir here. We've already figured this out. There are millions of people in your country who believe this. They saw the headline, red meat and dementia, and they're like, damn it, Luther, I told you need to stop eating that red meat. And now Luther's having to put up with his wife yelling at him because he likes to eat ribeye. No evidence whatsoever. This study shows the weakest of possible associations. It's so weak that many researchers would call it background noise. This is just static. This is not even a true finding. The only thing you could potentially use this research for is to say, well, I mean, that's a weak signal. Maybe we'll use this and we'll set up a study, an interventional study or something and we'll do this. But that's never going to happen, because every time they do a research study, randomized control trial, they find that, gosh, it didn't really, the red meat didn't really do anything bad at all. The Cochrane collaboration, they did a meta-analysis of randomized control trials looking at saturated animal fat. Like every randomized control trial that's ever been done about saturated fat, red meat, animal fat. You know what their findings were when they looked at all the randomized control trials, which actually you can use to say this causes or doesn't cause. They found no link between saturated fat and heart disease, no link between saturated fat and longevity, literally nothing. When you replace animal fat with vegetable oils, there's no benefit. So think about what's the goal of this article. They're trying to get you to stop eating animals. That's what they're trying to do. Even though human beings and our ancestors have been eating animals for, well, over 2.5 million years. It's literally the human beings' ancestral food. We've been eating meat longer than we've been eating wheat. We've been eating meat longer than we've been eating soybean. We've been eating meat longer than we've been eating broccoli. Literally any plant food you can name, we've been eating meat longer than we've been eating that food, that plant food. So until there is some actual real research that shows a real meaningful association with a hazard ratio of 10 or 20 or 30 between red meat and some disease, you are at your liberty. Not only do I say you are permitted to eat red meat, you are encouraged to eat healthy, fatty red meat. Now, processed meat always gets an even worse rap. But think about it. You can make bologna at home. People in the past made bologna at home all the time. You can make hot dogs at home. People used to do it all the time before it was easier to just buy them at the supermarket. You can make sausage at home. I guarantee you, some of you guys watching this have got a parent or a grandparent who will tell you, oh, yeah, we used to make sausages. We used to make bologna. We used to make hot dogs. Once a year, we'd make a whole bunch of them when we were killing pigs. Yeah, you can't make Impossible Burger at home. That has to be made in a chemical factory. Literally every single thing that they want you to replace your red meat with cannot be made at home. By definition, it must be made in a chemical factory. So what are we to make of this? What are we to take away from this? I want to know in the comments, what do you make of this? Do these people just so fervently believe in their heart of hearts that a plant-based diet they just believe it's so much better that they've just become plant-based apostles, plant-based prophets? This, like, I'm just going to take this to the world. I believe it to the core of my being. Or do you think that there's another motive? I was talking to a guy the other day, very smart guy, and he said, since I've stopped eating all the processed plant crap and I just went to eating, he was eating a carnivore diet, just meat, eggs, and seafood. He said, I want you to know my testosterone level has increased 150 points in 6 months. He said, I've got a conspiracy theory for you. I was like, okay, what? Tell me. He said, if I wanted to lower the testosterone of an entire nation, I would feed them plant-based diet. Because when a man's testosterone definitely gets low enough, that man loses willpower, loses fortitude, loses the desire or even the ability to stand up and say, by God, these are my rights and I'll fight for them. If your testosterone's low enough, you don't do that. Even in women, if your testosterone gets low enough, you're just like, yeah, whatever. I don't want to fool with it. That was just his theory. I don't know if that's true or not, but I have trouble arguing with his theory. I don't know. Is it about they truly believe it's the healthiest diet? Do you think that CNN believe that a plant-based diet is the healthiest diet for humans? U.S. News and World Report, do they believe that? I don't know. I don't think I believe they do. I think they all have eggs and bacon for breakfast and steak for dinner. And I think they keep pushing out these news stories for some reason, some motive. I want to know in the comments, what do you think? What's their motive? Why will they just not give up this plant-based diet thing? Now, I'm not anti-plant. I myself am a carnivore, but I'm a proponent of a proper human diet, which ranges from low carb with vegetables and berries and nuts to keto with a few berries and vegetables and nuts, to ketovore with just a little veg for flavor and garnish, all the way to carnivore. I think any one of those, depending on your overall metabolic health, your age, how overweight you are, how metabolically sick you are, your genetics maybe, your gut microbiome maybe, but that's the proper human diet spectrum. If you're young and active and you got great genetics, you can eat 100 total grams of carbs a day. You can eat plenty of vegetables and berries and fruit, a little fruit and some nuts, and with your meat, and do fine. I don't think that everybody needs to be a carnivore, but I think everybody needs to eat meat in their diet. Meat, eggs, and seafood are what made us human, and that they're what's going to keep us human. If you eat plant-based for long enough and your testosterone gets low enough, and all you do is sit around and consume and watch TV, watch CNN. I mean, do you really still qualify for the definition of human? Robert says, where is your evidence, Dr. Berry? Well, I'm not the one that put out the study. I'm telling you their evidence, and their evidence is piss poor. So I'm not even making a claim here. I want everybody to listen carefully to what I'm saying. The other side is claiming that a plant-based diet is the healthiest diet. They are claiming that eating red meat increases your risk of dementia, heart disease, impotence, type 2 diabetes. They're making the claims. All I'm saying is the evidence, the research you're using to make that claim is shitty. Therefore, I don't accept your claim. And so anytime somebody says, okay, you should do this, Robert's right. You should say, what's your evidence? But I didn't make the claim, Robert. Mass General made the claim. They said that eating red meat will increase your risk of dementia. I read their study thoroughly. I highlighted the hazard ratio. It's 1.13. That's foolish. I mean, maybe that should have been written up in an article, but no news organization should have picked that up. If they had a science editor, they would have read that and went, hazard ratio 1.13. I mean, shit, that's background noise. There's so many confounders. Were all these people, did they control for exercise? Did they control for age? Did they control for smoking? Did they control for drinking? Did they control for 150 different things? I'm sure they tried to control for some things, but you can't control for all that stuff. It's impossible. So what my point is, Robert, is their evidence is crap. Therefore, I don't accept their hypothesis that eating red meat increases my risk of dementia. So what are we to do? And here's my point, Robert. Here's for everybody. This is the important point. When somebody says, oh, this new thing is better than the old thing, and here's my evidence, and you're like, oh, they've got a new thing. They say it's better than the old thing. Let me look at their evidence. You look at their evidence, you're like, this is junk. No, I don't buy that. Then you keep doing the old thing. Well, what is the old thing? I'm not going to adopt your new strategy. I'm not going to eat plant-based because your research is crap. I'm going to continue to do what my ancestors have done for millions of years. And Robert, you can look in the anthropological and the paleoanthropological literature if you need evidence that humans have been eating meat for over 2 million years. It's there. It's not even up for debate in anthropology circles. Yes, humans have eaten meat. That's the food that we can trace back the furthest in time. So my strategy is they have presented their argument. Their argument is foolish. I do not accept their argument. Therefore, I will fall back to the ancestral way of eating until such time as they actually prove to me that a plant-based diet is healthier. Does that make sense, Robert? I didn't make a claim. I didn't get an article on CNN or U.S. News and World Report. They did that. I'm answering their claim. My evidence is the paleoanthropological research that shows without doubt that human beings have been eating meat longer, provably longer than any other form of subsistence. Meat, eggs, and seafood. That's it. That's the foods we've been eating the longest. If you live near the ocean or a river, you ate fish. If you lived in the forest or on the savanna or on the plains, you ate meat. If you couldn't get meat, you would scrounge around and eat some plants. Yes, of course. When the berries were ripe, you would eat the hell out of them. When you found a honey tree, you would suffer the stings and eat honey. But the berries were only ripe for a week or two a year, and the honey trees are few and far between. The thing we ate every day, Robert, was meat. From the beginning of even looking like a human being, we were eating meat. Actually, long before we even looked like human beings, we were eating meat. Now, let's get to some questions. Nav says, maximum number of cod liver cans can I eat in a day? Robert, eat one a day, brother. Think of cod liver as your medicine. And for all of you guys, if you're not eating liver, cod liver is a great gateway liver. Cod liver and chicken liver are the least livery of the livers. You can doll them up. You can put some stuff on them, some spices, and you can eat them. And liver is the ultimate superfood. Also, liver is meat. Also, humans have been eating livers for millions of years. So there's no point eating multiple cans a day. It's pricey now. Eat one a day. Brooks, what are the best supplements to improve the health of my pancreas? So the best way to improve the health of your pancreas is to stop eating sugars and stop drinking sugar. Next is to stop drinking alcohol. Next is to stop eating grains, wheat, rice, oats, corn. Stop that. Next is to stop eating vegetable oils or cooking with them. Stop that. If you do that, your pancreas is going to be so much happier and healthier, you'll forget about which supplements you need to take. BB says, hey, Dr. Berry, do you offer one-on-one coaching consultation? Not currently, BB, but I'll tell you a way you can get the next best thing. We have a private group, thousands of people in there, where we do lots of additional live Q&As just like this. Every week, we do at least 3 or 4 extra live Q&As inside the group. We have guest experts who appear in there routinely. We've got 10 primal health coaching certified coaches in there answering questions constantly. Some of them have been with me since the beginning. They know exactly how I'm going to answer a question, and that's how they answer it. We have, like I said, special guests. We've had Michelle Hearn inside the group. We've had Dr. Eric Westman inside the group. For 2025, we've got a long lineup of people who are going to be doing guest presentations inside of our private group. There's a link in the show notes. If you want to become a tribe member, there's 2 different levels of sign up depending on how much benefits you want to get out of it. But that's as close as it gets to a one-on-one consultation with me currently. Nav says, what do you think about peptides like BPC 157? I've actually been studying BPC 157 for over a decade. I've actually used it in the past when I had a torn rotator cuff. I think that there's probably some promise there. I think there's probably benefit to be had. The problem is that the U.S. federal government's making it so hard to get your hands on it that it's effectively illegal. And so if you go to a website that claims to have BPC 157 or any of the other peptides, it's either going to not be real, or it's going to be diluted, or it's going to say on it, not for human use, for experiment only, or something like that. If you can find a reputable brand, I think it's probably very helpful if you've got a chronic injury you're trying to heal. But the U.S. federal government currently makes it so difficult to get your hands on the real item. In some parts of the country, there are actually healthcare providers and standalone pharmacies that will compound BPC 157. And if you can find one that's reputable, then yeah, I think it's fine. This is something I hope in the new administration that the FDA, I hope they calm down about stuff like BPC 157 that's never been shown to cause any harm. Like, it's not like, well, I don't know, it's dicey. No, like, I don't know of any harm that's ever been caused by BPC 157. Why do we have these stringent guidelines over something like that? But then when it comes to other things where there is some evidence of harm, then the FDA and the CDC are pushing those on us left and right. It's kind of weird. NG 1989, does beef, butter, bacon, and eggs have the same weight loss effect with different meat, or is beef just the best meat for weight loss? So the weight loss from beef, butter, bacon, and eggs doesn't come from what beef, butter, bacon, and eggs is. It comes from what beef, butter, bacon, and eggs is not. There's no carbs. There's no sugar. There's no grains. There's no vegetable seed oils. Now, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs is about a 1-to-1 ratio of fat to protein. So it's very satiating, which means that you can lose weight without constantly starving, without feeling like you're going to starve to death and chew your own leg off. That's how you feel with most diets. Remember Weight Watchers? You could stick to it for a month or two, but at some point you're like, dude, I'm starving. I got to eat. Beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, you can eat as much as you want. I got a YouTube video that goes into detail about this. You remove all of the carbs, all the sugar, all the inflammatory things. You leave the healthy animal fat and healthy animal protein, both of which are really, really satiating. So most people wind up eating 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day on beef, butter, bacon, and eggs because they're not hungry all the time. You don't have to snack in between meals, and I counsel that you do not snack between meals on beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. You can eat 3 meals a day if you want to on beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. Don't snack in between meals. That's going to help you lose weight even faster. Coder Terry, Dr. D. Nicolantonio speaks about needing a potassium sodium bicarb supplement for animal-based eating to prevent too much acidity. What is your opinion? Yeah, I heard Dr. D. Nicolantonio's claim about meat makes your body acidic. And I think Dr. D. Nicolantonio's book, The Salt Fix, is one of the best books ever written about salt. I highly endorse that book, but his take about an all-meat diet making your body acidic, your blood acidic, making your interstitial fluid acidic, this is foolishness. Physiology doesn't work that way. The only way to check for the actual acidity of your blood is to do something called an arterial blood gas. which is sticking a needle into one of your arteries. Now, I've done this hundreds of times in the emergency department. And when I was training at the trauma center and in OBG, in an emergency situation, you have to get an arterial blood gas. You have to stick a needle into a patient's artery. It's painful. You don't do that routinely. When you go to your doctor, that's a venous blood draw. And sometimes it'll show a pH of this, that, or the other, but that's venous blood. No doctor who's worth a damn puts any credence in a venous blood pH at all. Arterial blood, that's where you check a pH. That's how it's done in all the leading institutions, even at Brigham. That's how they check blood pH. So the whole meat is acidic, plants are basic, that entire argument is foolishness. I've looked into it extensively. Good question. David, vegetarian diets during pregnancy has raised concerns about their effects on maternal and neonatal outcomes. Science Direct paper article titled Strict Vegetarian Diet and Pregnancy Outcomes. Yeah, do not do this. If you're pregnant or you know someone who's pregnant, or if you're breastfeeding or know someone who is, and they're gonna eat a plant-based diet or vegan diet, please try to talk some sense into them. This is not safe. They will need to take 12 to 15 supplements a day if they're pregnant, trying to eat a vegan diet, in order to not do harm to the baby. Please do not do this. The nutrition organizations they're starting to back away from this. For a minute there, they were saying, oh, a well-formulated vegan diet is perfectly safe and perfectly healthy in pregnancy. But less and less often are they saying that. They were screaming it from the rooftops. They've stopped that. It's still in their guidelines, but they're steadily backing up from that. And I predict in another 3 to 5 years that the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics will take that out of their guidelines, because that's indefensible. That's foolishness. People can make the argument, well, you need to include some plants in your diet. I'm not necessarily opposed to that argument. Humans have always eaten some amount of plants in their diet. Even 2.5 million years ago, we would always choose the meat because it's the most nutrient dense. It's got the most protein. It's got the most fat. It's got the most essential vitamins and minerals. Of course, it's just common sense. That's what we're going to pick. If we didn't have meat, eggs, or seafood, then we ate whatever the hell we could get our hands on. When the nuts we liked were ripe, sure, we ate them. We had to get them out of the tree and crack the shells. You probably didn't eat many of them. If you've ever cracked nuts, it's not easy. Granny Berry cracks walnuts, and she loves to eat them, but she also sells them. And when I was in college, I would try to crack walnuts to make some gas money. After about the sixth smash finger, I'm like, to hell with that. This is not worth it. When the berries were ripe, of course, our ancestors ate the berries. When we found a honey tree, of course, we ate the honey. But that wasn't the majority of our diet. That wasn't the primary objective of our diet. The primary objective was meat and fish. If you lived near a river or the ocean, you ate all the seafood, all the fish. If you lived away from the water, you ate all the red meat. That's just it's common sense, but it's also well shown in the research literature in anthropology. It's not even debatable. But if you're pregnant, please do not eat a vegan diet. If nothing else, add eggs and seafood and some dairy, because you're not killing a mammal. And I've been wanting to talk about this. So most vegans say, oh, vegan's the best, healthiest diet. This is obvious horseshit. Vegan diet's not the healthiest diet. The healthiest diet is a proper human diet. It might include some veg, it might not, but it's going to include fatty red meat by definition. But if a vegan or a plant-based person, if they make the argument that they personally believe it's unethical to kill an animal for its meat or for its flesh, as they would say, I can get behind that argument. But I really want to, any vegans watching this, and I know I always have a few, please hear this argument, and it's for your health. I understand why you wouldn't want to eat mammals. They're in the same class of animal as we are. They're warm-blooded. They have fur. They're soft when you pet them. They have babies that they seem to love. They nurse their baby's milk just like we do. They have a bond with their baby. If you take their baby away from them, they're in obvious distress. Yes, all that's true. I wish that more and more vegans would come around and say, I don't eat mammals, because mammals, I believe, as a vegan, I'm just being the vegan argument now. I believe mammals are sentient. I believe they have feelings. I believe that they feel love. I believe they feel fear. I could totally understand that argument. I'd be like, okay, I got you. No, I can't even argue with you. You believe that. Okay, so then eat eggs and eat poultry, eat fish, eat crustaceans, eat shellfish. You can get all the nutrition you need. You can still keep eating lots of your plants if you want to, but add seafood, crustacean, fish, shellfish, eggs, poultry. They're not mammals. They don't cuddle. They're not cuddly. Okay. Whatever, find something that doesn't have the traits that you associate with sentience. That's nutrient dense. Fish don't give a damn about their babies. They just squirt out some eggs. The daddy comes and squirts some sperm, and then everybody leaves. They don't give a damn. They don't nurse them. They're not cuddly. Eat fish. Chickens are going to lay eggs whether you eat them or not. Baby chickens are super cute, so maybe don't eat chicken, but eat their eggs. Find somebody who's got backyard chickens. Trust me, backyard chickens have the best life in the world. Eat eggs. You're getting super healthy, super nutritious animal fat and animal protein by doing that. I'm not even going to try to take away your argument that I don't eat mammals. I feel like that they're too much like us. I get that. They're in the same class as us. Yeah, I get that argument. But you can eat fish and you can eat eggs, shellfish, crustaceans. You can get all the vitamins and minerals, all the fatty acids and amino acids. Now, I personally believe that beef and the animal of ruminants, beef, goat, sheep, I think that's the healthiest meat options. But I don't think it's the only meat options. And if your choice is I'm either going to eat no animals whatsoever, or since fish are not cute and cuddly and they don't give a damn about their babies, and you could take a mama fish and one of her babies hatch and you could literally pull the baby fish's head off. The mama wouldn't give a damn. She'd probably eat the baby. In many cases, fish do eat their own babies. They don't care. There you go. Fish, eggs, seafood, crustaceans, shellfish. These things almost certainly don't feel pain. Even if they do feel pain, they're not sentient. They don't feel love. They don't care. You need nutrition for your body. If you don't get the right amount of nutrition and enough of it, your health will suffer. That's inarguable. So don't eat mammals if it hurts your heart. I totally get that argument, but there's many other types of animal nutrition that you could choose from and benefit from. Natalia, can I follow a carnivore diet after my thyroid was removed 13 years ago due to radioactive iodine treatment? I also have a fatty liver and I'm hoping to reverse it with this diet. Yes, 100%, Natalia. You will benefit greatly from a carnivore diet. You'll reverse your fatty liver, and anywhere it'll be between a month and 3 months, your fatty liver will be gone. If you have type 2 diabetes and you go on a carnivore diet, within 3 to 12 months, your type 2 diabetes will be completely gone. If you have hypertension, high blood pressure, and you go on a carnivore diet, within a month, 6 months, you'll have to lower the amount of blood pressure medicine you're taking because your blood pressure will come down. If you have obesity and go on a carnivore diet, you are going to lose a significant amount of weight. People will accuse you of taking Ozempic or Wegovy, even though you're just eating meat, eggs, and seafood. Yes, Natalia, whether you have a thyroid or not, you can benefit from carnivore. Whether you have a gallbladder or not, you can benefit from carnivore. Whether you have a appendix or not, you can benefit from carnivore. If you don't have your uterus or your ovaries or your testicles or you're blind in both eyes or whatever, you can still benefit from a carnivore diet because of all the nutrition it contains and because of all of the inflammatory stuff it does not contain. S-Jack, I saw a video say that vitamin D3 supplements are the same ingredient in rat poison and is harmful to us. Is there any validity to this? So there are some versions of rat poison that contain ultra high doses of vitamin D. And it works to kill rats because rats are not humans. I don't advocate that humans take ultra high doses of vitamin D. I recommend you take an appropriate dose of vitamin D, vitamin D3, not vitamin D2, and don't take a super mega rat poison dose of it. Take somewhere between 2 and 10,000 international units a day. That's what most people need to get their vitamin D25 level up to somewhere between 50 and 100, which is the optimal range. Clam, 35-year-old male, 5'4", PhD for 12 months. 6 months in, HDL 30, still low, LDL 100. HDL 30, so after 12 months, HDL had come up 5 points, which is very common when you're on a carnivore diet for your HDL to come up. So I don't know what style carnivore diet you're eating, Clam, but given your handle, Clam, I figure you're probably eating a lot of seafood, which is fine. But if you want to raise your HDL more, you need to eat more fatty red meat, number one. And number two, you need to start lifting heavy things. Lifting weights, building muscle will help raise your HDL. Clam's also down from 260 pounds down to 200 pounds now. Huzzah. Pork Chop Robbins had gallbladder removed 5 years ago, started carnivore last month and started getting the worst heartburn daily. What should I do? Go carnivore slowly. Don't do it overnight. Just from whatever diet you're on right now, go low carb, then keto, then ketovore, then carnivore. Do it over a month and you won't have any problems whatsoever. Marie, 1-year-old granddaughter, recently had blood work. Her lead level was less than 1.0. My daughter is wondering if that's good. Sounds like that's normal, Marie. That typically for heavy metal levels, they'll say less than something, which means effectively zero. Now, if you think your granddaughter's been exposed to lead or some other heavy metal, you may want to do more advanced testing. But this is effectively a zero. So yeah. That's fine. Southern Joe's, any truth to the methylene blue hype I'm seeing? Yeah, methylene blue is super popular right now. Used to be peroxide. Remember that when people were inhaling peroxide and injecting peroxide and putting peroxide up their butthole? The methylene blue is now the peroxide. And there will be something else 6 months from now and then something else. And then a lot of the influencers who are trying to make a living, they'll do an affiliation link, and there you go. Now your favorite influencer recommends methylene blue. There's some limited research that methylene blue can have some beneficial effects in limited medical situations. That does not make it a panacea, aka a cure-all. That's not how the human body works. No, methylene blue does serve a few limited purposes, but it does not do all the things that you see the hype around. No. And 6 months from now, when the next thing comes out, let's see, what's it going to be? It might be red dye number 4 or number 3. They'll be like, oh, red dye number 3 actually is super healthy. Put it up your butthole. No. Whatever the next thing is, it's also not a panacea. Michelle, no doubt this study is bogus. 9 months strictly carnivore, still major hair loss, increased my fat and protein. I've lost 40 pounds and I'm 75 years old, also eating sardines and liver. Excellent, Michelle. Now, Why is Michelle losing her hair? Who knows? Is it because she's on a carnivore diet? No. Is it because she's eating so much fat and protein? No. Is it because she's eating sardines and liver? Is that why she's losing her hair? No. It's because she's losing weight. She's lost 40 pounds so far on carnivore. Anytime a woman is losing weight very rapidly from any diet plan, she's going to lose hair. I've got a YouTube video about weight loss and hair loss. This has been known. You can actually look up vegan diet hair loss. There'll be hundreds of articles. Weight Watchers diet hair loss, hundreds of articles. Slim Fast hair loss, hundreds of articles. Any diet that if you lose weight, you're going to lose hair, especially as a woman. Once you've gotten down close to your ideal body weight, Michelle, something magical is going to happen. You're going to stop losing hair, and your hair is going to start to grow back in, and it's going to be the most beautiful hair you've had in the last 10 years when it grows in. Hair grows slowly, so you're going to have to give it a few months, right? Mario, doctor, I'm 6 foot tall, 298 pounds. Just finished my first week of the lion diet. So the lion diet, for those of you who don't know, is just ruminant meat, salt, and water. It's very popular right now, but most people don't need to do the lion diet. Mario may or may not need to. But his second part of his question tells me he probably doesn't. He doesn't need to do the lion diet. Some people with autoimmune conditions or severe inflammation benefit from cutting out everything except ruminant meat, which in modern society would be beef, goat, sheep, venison. These are ruminants because the multi-chamber stomach does magic things to what the ruminants eat, and the meat is super uninflammatory. And it can help with autoimmune conditions and with severe inflammation conditions. Do you think adding cheese will stop my weight loss? So Mario's just probably doing this for weight loss. Mario, you can just do carnivore. There's no point being that tight to be on a lion diet if all you're trying to do is lose weight. Carnivore is going to help you lose weight just as fast. For many people, cheese is hyper palatable, meaning that you can overeat past your point of fullness because of the casomorphins in the cheese that can make you eat past the point of fullness. We have hormones that tell us when we're full. But the casomorphins, they rhyme with morphine for a reason. They can make you, even though your satiety hormones are saying, hey, you're full, Mario, the casomorphins in the cheese can say, yeah, but man, this cheese is good. And you keep eating more cheese past the point where you've already eaten enough food. And that's going to slow down your weight loss. Pam, could drugs that I took prior to the proper human diet, like Byetta, Trulicity, and insulin, have damaged my pancreas as I still have unstable and high glucose? And what can I do to get it down? So first thing you need to do, Pam, is you need to check a lab test called a fasting insulin. It happens where people are diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic when they're really a type 1 diabetic. And that may have happened to you. The only way to know is to check a fasting insulin. Also, if you've just started the proper human diet, you didn't tell me how long you've been on it. If it's just been a few weeks, your metabolism's still getting back to normal and your body's still healing. You're going to have some flip-floppy blood sugars for a few weeks, and then it'll calm down. Get your A1C and fasting insulin checked. That'll give you a ton of information. Then we can talk about the results, especially if you're in the private community. That's a great way is you get your fasting insulin. Then the next time I'm live, you're like, hey, I got that fasting insulin. It was 14. Then I'm going to say, well, you're definitely not type 2. I mean, you're definitely not type 1 then. Or you come back and say, yeah, I got my fasting insulin and it was 0.1. And I'll say, yeah, you're type 1 and your doctor told you were type 2, but your doctor was wrong. Steve Griffith, what is the carbon footprint of catering a vegetarian diet versus carnivore, such as factories to make the seed oils, jet engines to spray pesticides, cargo ships to ship the vegan food everywhere, the chemical factories that make Impossible Burger and the other fake meat that it seems like vegans want. But also, here's another thing. We're talking about methane and carbon. When you eat a plant-based diet, you make lots of methane. Yes. If you want to win the farting championship, go vegan. You will fart more than you've ever farted in your entire life. And it will be higher in methane. That's something that they don't figure into all the carbon and methane emission data, is that if everybody converted to a plant-based diet, human beings would produce so much more methane from their backsides. They don't figure that in for some reason. But anybody who's been carnivore for a few months, if you know somebody, just ask them, say, hey, do you fart less now than back when you were eating plants? 99% of the time, they're going to be like, yeah, like I don't pass gas. It's just rare. It's just a tiny amount, rarely. But back when I was eating plants, oh my God. Yeah. And I think once the carbon methane equations are calculated properly, I think you'll see that that whether you eat meat or not has no effect on our climate whatsoever. This is another one of those false arguments that they love to make. If they can't make you guilty for eating the poor, sweet, cuddly animal, then they'll try to make you feel guilty for destroying Mother Earth. Go carnivore, poot less. Thank you, Michelle, very much. Lonnie, been seeing a rapidly growing movement for the peat diet from some previous carnivore diet advocates. Any thought on this growing movement? Like I said earlier, not everyone needs to be a carnivore, but everyone needs meat in their diets. And Ray Peat was a big fan of eating meat. And most followers of Peat eat lots of meat, which I think that's great. I don't agree with some of the things they say, but as long as they're including lots of fatty red meat in their diet, I think that's fine. I don't have a problem with them, although I don't agree with them on several key issues. We agree on a great many things. Brett, thank you very much. Ali, I'm on week 3 of my carnivore diet. Been feeling some dizziness while sitting and getting up. Is it related? So, Ali, if you were previously obese or previously had hypertension and you're on blood pressure medication, it's almost certainly that you need to decrease the dose of your blood pressure medication. From your profile picture, I can't really tell, but it wouldn't surprise me if you weren't taking a blood pressure medication. It's time to either decrease the dose or stop it. Talk to your doctor. Natalia, again, I want to send you a big kiss. I'm so glad I found you. My life has changed. 6 days on the carnivore diet, and I've already lost 7 pounds. Thank you very much for the smooch. Pam, been PhD since 2020, fasting insulin 17, A1C 6.9, but I've lost 95 pounds. So you're probably keto, Pam. And with an insulin still at 17 and A1C still type 2 diabetic, I would guess you're probably keto-ish or dirty keto. You need to go 90 days of nothing but beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, and then recheck your fasting insulin and your A1C. And I think you'll be very happy with the outcome. And if you're in our community, next time I'm live in there, when you get your results back, we can talk about it. All right, let's see what else you guys got going on here. How many diets can you say this about? Ray Bird, I started July 17th after watching one of your videos. So she didn't sign up for anything. She didn't write a check. She didn't slide her credit card. She just saw one of my videos and went, huh, and started doing it. And since July 17th, she's lost 52 pounds. She didn't have to go to the doctor. She didn't have to do an online visit to get her Ozempic or Wegovy. She just watched a video and she got the concepts. Once it clicks in your head, you're like, oh, and then you know what to do. And that's one of the beautiful things about keto and carnivore that made me fall in love with them back when I was practicing medicine full time was I would explain to a person the American Diabetes Association diet, and I would just spend so much time, and they would say, "Okay, I'll do it, doc," and they'd come back and in 3 months they gained 3 pounds and their A1C went up. I'm like, they must not be doing it. It made me doubt my patient's honesty. But with keto and carnivore, once I explain the simple concepts to you, you're like, oh, sugar, okay. Oh, grains, wheat, rice, oats, corn, got it. Okay, vegetable seed oils, yeah, got it. Low carb is possible, okay, got it. Eat lots of red meat, lots of eggs, lots of seafood, okay, got it. Once you learn those concepts, you're off to the races. You don't have to pay a monthly fee. You don't have to do any of that. You're just like, oh, got it. It changes your paradigm about food. Now, if Ray Bird, if she were to go off her carnivore diet, fall off the wagon, if you fall off the wagon on Weight Watchers or any of the other popular fad diets, you know, the diets that the U.S. News and World Report says are the top diets in the world. If you fall off those diets, you gain back all the weight, or you gain back all the weight plus 10 more pounds. But on keto and carnivore, I would have people, we're all human. They'd have some drama or something, they'd fall off the wagon. And they'd come back in 3 months and be like, oh, doc, I feel terrible. I fell off the wagon. And they had lost 80 pounds. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'd look at the chart and be like, oh, you've gained 20 pounds. And they're like, yeah. And they're mortified that they had only regained 20 pounds out of the 80 they lost. And me being a doctor, seeing people for decades lose weight and gain it back, I'm like, dude, do you understand? That's freaking amazing. And that's why I think it is for people like Ray Bird on keto or carnivore. Once you get the principles of it, you might backslide. You might go off the diet. You might splurge a little, but you still remember the concepts. Your paradigm's still been shifted. And so you might sin and fall short, so to speak, but you're not going to go back to the way you ate initially. You just don't ever go back to eating like that again because it clicked in your brain. You're like, oh, I got it. There might be still some dessert or something. You're like, I freaking love that. It's my birthday. I'm going to eat it. And then you get carried away. And out of the 50 pounds you lost, you gain back 10 pounds. And then you're like, as soon as you get on the scales, you're like, oh, hell no. And you go right back on keto, carnivore, proper human diet, and it comes right back off. That's one of the beautiful things about this way of eating is once you understand the principles, it's just hard to screw it up. Anthony says bologna is okay, but mortadella is 1,000 times better for me. Mortadella is pretty awesome. I have to agree. Brooks went keto last Labor Day. A1C has gone from 10.1 down to 5.6. So Brooks was severely type 2. Severely, 10.1. Now A1C is normal at 5.6. Also lost 42 pounds. Fasting insulin 3.9, glucose 91. It works. Brooks spent $5 on a super chat to tell you doubters out there. Those of you who just tuned in, you're like, I don't know if this keto carnivore thing's for real or not. Brooks just spent $5 to tell you, yeah, dude, it's a real thing. I'm just a real person with a real life. And I went keto last Labor Day and was a severe type 2 diabetic and 42 pounds overweight. Now, no longer type 2, not even pre-diabetic, and have lost 42 pounds. And my insulin level is perfect. And you can do it too. That's what Brooks just told you guys. Listen to Brooks. Here's Rob. I've been carnivore for 1 month. Already down 10 pounds. So much more energy. Can't wait to see how I'm doing 3 months from now. Huzzah, Rob. That is the way. Yeah. Here's the thing. Okay. Kimberly's got a question. Have you seen the doctor that says people are going to realize how bad the carnivore diet is after a year or so, and the fad will be over? I think he's selling some kind of vitamins on TV. Yeah. What you're going to find, Kimberly, is that anybody who says that a proper human diet, it's bad, you'll find out they're selling something. So, how many of you went to the doctor and you started keto or carnivore or ketovore, and your LDL cholesterol went up significantly? Did your doctor say, "Oh, your LDL's up a little bit, in 5 to 10 years, that might cause a heart attack. We might want to do something about that"? Or did your doctor say, "Oh my God, your LDL is high. You're going to have a heart attack any minute. Like literally any day, could be dead tomorrow from this LDL"? But here's the problem, Kimberly. There are people who have been doing the carnivore diet, who have been doing keto for over 20 years. And not only have these people not died, not gotten cancer, not had a heart attack, but they look 10 to 20 years younger than their chronological age. So then the question becomes to this doctor and to all the other doctors out there saying, well, you may have went carnivore and lost weight and reversed your type 2 diabetes and gotten rid of your blood pressure and lost weight and sleep better and feel better and have more energy. Maybe all that's true, but in 5 to 10 years, you're going to die of a heart attack. How long we got to wait, Doc? How long do we have to wait before we realize? I mean, is it 30 years, at 40, 50 years? When, because, there are millions of people there's tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people doing a keto diet. There should be people dropping dead left and right, like every day. 10 more people died in London last night on a carnivore diet or a keto diet. There are millions now doing carnivore. They should be 3 or 4 a day. In Nashville, the Tennesseans should be like, 3 people died last night because of the carnivore diet. I mean, people should be dropping like flies if it is indeed as dangerous as these doctors say. But now they're starting to say things like this, like, oh, in a few years. But, to begin with, it's next week, you're going to die. Then it was in a year or two. Now it's in a few years. Some are already, well, in 5 to 10 years, this could cause problems. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So we're going to hold our breath until it causes problems, because we still yet to see the epidemic of heart attacks that the keto diet, which has been popular for almost a decade now, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people live daily on a keto diet. There should be an epidemic of heart attacks. And you don't think that doctors would be writing up that case series? I had 20 heart attacks last month here in the ER of people on a keto diet. They would write that up in a second. That would make a headline in every news organization in the world. But you don't ever see that. Why? Because it doesn't happen. All right, guys, that's it. On the way out, please hit the thumbs up and share this video if you haven't already done so. If you didn't get enough of this, I'm going to be live in our private group coming up soon. There's a link in the show notes. You can become part of our tribe. And every time I go live in there, instead of 5,500 people asking questions, there'll be 100 or 200. And I can answer your questions much more thoroughly, much more completely. Otherwise, I'll see you next time I'm live on YouTube. See you later.